Greetings everyone, welcome to my channel Professor underscore 101. So in today's lesson I will be talking about one of the major topics in algebra, and that as it relates to factorization. Now factorization is one of those topics in algebra that deals with simplifying algebraic expressions or equations. Sometimes it is used to maybe to like solve questions that may be problematic, like it's maybe too complex, so we would have like a breakdown to solve these equations, right? So we would tend to factorize some equations just for the sake of solving, but in another sense factorization really is just simplifying an algebraic equations or expressions. There's a difference between expressions and equations. An equation is when you have an expression, so I have 2x plus 3x. That's an expression. But an equation is when you have an equal sign, and you might even put like, just say for example 5, or anything you put there, that is going to that is going to be my equation. Once there is a presence of an equal sign, it now becomes an equation. Okay, but those are basic lessons. We can do that in another video, but for now I really would like to talk about factorization. Now if you realize I just put a work on the board with 2x plus 5x, I just want to talk about when it comes down to algebra, is that there is something about algebra that you cannot add or subtract like unlike terms. And an unlike term in algebra is given as 3x squared plus 2x. Now, like terms like these, we cannot do anything more with them. However, we can actually simplify these terms. So where we have 3x squared plus 2x, you might ask the question, why is it that I can't do anything with it? We can't add them, and it's just that addition sign here. If it was a multiplication sign, we could just go ahead and simply multiply. But in terms of addition and subtraction, we cannot add or subtract terms that are not alike. Now, looking at this, for example, when you look at this, what you'll notice is that the difference between these two, yes, the coefficients are different, but if you look carefully, is that one have an index of 2 and one have an index of 1. In identifying like and unlike terms in algebra, the main thing that you need to focus on is the index and also the power. Sorry, the variable and the power. Right? So we need to just focus on the variable and the power to define my like and unlike terms. Okay, so our variable is x. So we see x on both sides, and we have an index of 2. So once the variables, if the variables are the same, we have to look if the variables are the same. So that's one thing that you look for if you can go ahead and add your algebraic expression, right? So variables, they must be the same. And the next thing is that the powers, the index also must be the same, right? So index must also be the same. But we know that in not many cases that is going to be the case. So that's not going to be the situation in most cases then, or in other cases. So we have 3x squared plus 2x. So that now, in this scenario, you cannot add or subtract, but you can simplify. And that is how factorization comes in. So factorization comes in when we have to simplify these algebraic expressions. So we have 3x squared plus 2x. So 3x squared plus 2x. So we could just simplify by taking out what is common amongst both terms. So these are terms. This is another thing that you have to bear in mind. These are terms. So this is term 1 and this is term 2. So these are just terms, right? So a term with an operator and another term gives us an expression. So I just That is just basic information. So in factorizing this algebraic expression, I could look at what is common amongst both terms. So I see that x is common. There's no factor of 3 or 2 that is common other than 1. Right? So we just leave that one out. But for if we look at the x, we can see that x is common amongst both terms. So what we do with variables is that when it comes down to variables, we take out the variable with the lower index or the lowest index. So we put the x outside and then bracket, we're going to bracket that, and then what we're going to have now is that we're actually going to be dividing. So 3x and x, and we also have 2x, right? So let me just write it a little bit bigger so we can see what is happening right there. That should be big enough. And then now whatsoever I'm taking out, I'm just gonna divide it here and there. So x is going to be cancelling one of the x's. This x is going to be cancelling that x. So I'm left with just the 3x here, and here just put back the plus sign. I'm just left with the 2. So there you have it. The algebraic expression is now simplified. So if you look at this may look like a more simplified version for you, right? It gets more simplified, or looks more simplified as it when we get to like more complicated workout problems, right? But this is really how we simplify, and we simplify by factorizing. Now the key word in factorization is the word factor, and that's what I want to look at this moment. Okay, so I want to look at my term factor in the term factorization. Now, when we talk about factor, what are factors? Right? Let us say you have four, and you also have 6. What are factors of 4? So any number that when multiplied by another number gives us our factor. Let's look at it another way. Any number that can be divided into a number without leaving a remainder is your factor of that number, right? So when you talk about 4, if we were to say, if I were to say 1 times 4, that's going to give me 4. So 4 and 1 are factors of 4 because when I multiply another number, gives me 4. The next number is 2. If I were to multiply 2 by itself, it also gives me 4. So we know that 4 is a squared number. And we see that the factors of 4 will be 1, 2, and 4. So it has 3 factors. 1 is always a factor of a number. 1 is the factor of any number, right? So look here now, we have 6 again. So let us look at 6. What are my factors of 6? What can be multiplied with 6 that gives me 6? We know that 1 times 6 is 6. 2 times 3 is also 6. So my factors of 6 would be 1, 2, 3, and 6. So those are the factors of 6. So let us talk about our common factors here. So when you look at 4 and 6, we have something that is common among both factors. So we have 2 being common and 2 being common right there. So these 2 are common. 1 is always a factor of anything, so 1 is going to always be common. But my highest common factor in this case would be the larger one, which would be 2. So my HCF is 2. So we have to have that understanding in going forward with the lesson. So with that understanding, we're just going to keep this 4 and the 6. So using the 4 and the 6, we're going to keep that. And let us say we're going to go back to our x squared and our x. So when we look at this, we see our coefficients 4 and 6. We just identified the highest common factor between 4 and 6, and it was 2. right? We know that we're going to take out the variable because the variables are the same. We take out the one with the lower or the lowest index. Then if we were to spell out everything, we would have 4 times x, because that's x squared. And then this now, we're going to have 6 times x. So in taking out my factors, if I take out my factors amongst both terms, 22, 1, 24, that's 2, cancelling out. And 2 into 6 is 3, and x is cancelled out. So all I'm left with is 2x. And all I'm just going to, let's put the plus sign right there. And then I'm going to put my 3 right there. So that is factorizing right there. So all I did was to take out what is common among both terms and divide it to have a breakdown. Now, as I said before, is that factorization is really a form of simplifying algebraic equations. So if you were to look carefully, if we were to expand the brackets, 2x times 2x is 4x squared, and 2x times 3 times positive 3, 2 times 3 is 6, and x, that's going to be giving me back my 6. So if I were to expand the brackets, we actually get back our initial workout, our initial expression.